Aloha, this is DgyMie, you know, your favorite loop station artist. And welcome to a tutorial where I show the settings of the Boss RC505 MK2 loop station. Yeah!
Hello everyone, I hope you're doing great. Today we're gonna go in pretty much all the settings of the RC505 MK2 and hopefully show you things that you don't know yet. I don't know every single settings yet, but I know what I think are the most important ones. And if there is any settings that I say I don't know, feel free to talk about it in the comments and I will add it to a pinned comment. And before we start the video, you should check out my previous one, which is about how to set it up. You can click on top here or in the description. And that being said, let's go. So step one, we're gonna have a look at the effects. So let's select one of the effects. Alright, we have the oscillator bot right there. One thing that you can find on every single effect right now is when you go left, you can switch it on and off, you can switch the mode, and you can choose which input. If I switch it on, of course, we'll have the sound of the effect. If I switch the toggle mode to moment, I will then have to hold the button to use the effect. Here I can select the input where it's gonna come from. If I want, for example, a specific reverb to be only on a guitar, I can then just choose instrument 1, for example. But for now, let's keep it on all. Many effects now have a sequencer. You can find that, for example, here. You can switch the sequencer on. Sync will make it so that the sequence will restart every bar. Alright, let's do a beat. Alright, now let's use the oscillator bot with sync off. And now let's use it with sync on. As you can see, it restarts every bar. If I hit retrieve, that means every time I switch on the effect, it will restart the sequence. If you go further, the step rate is how fast you want the note to change. The step max is how many steps you want. And then you can find every single step and you can give them any note. Now on the track effects, if you go left, the insert will then be useful to select which track will have the effect. So you can have two different effects for two different tracks. Step 2, the track settings. There are two different ways to open the track settings. The easiest one is to click on track on any track and it will open its settings. The other way to do that is by opening loop, and here you can select which track you want to edit. Let's say I want to edit track 3. I'm just going to record one note on track 3. Alright. So here we have some basic effects like the reverse, for example. We have the one shot, so we can play it as many times as we want. Then we have the panning, we can choose right or left. We have the play level if you want to make it louder or quieter. On the next page, we can choose the starting mode, if you want it to be immediate or if we want it to fade in. Same for the stop mode, but we can also make it stop at the end of the loop. And then there are multiple overdub modes. The first one is the classic one where we can just overdub notes on top of each other. The second one is replace. So as soon as this button is yellow, it will delete the previous recording for the next loop. Let me show you. Replace 2 is slightly different. As soon as the track is yellow, you will not even be able to listen to the previous recording. So let's skip down overdub mode. Then we have the effects we can switch on and off, but it's easier to just press here. On the next page, you can choose to have multi or single play mode. If you have two tracks on single play mode, They will never be able to play at the same time. Then you have the measure. You can predefine the length of a track. And when you do that, you can record an empty track by holding the stop button and clicking the play button. Now it's an empty track. Then we have the loop sync, which I wouldn't recommend turning it off, as I still have had some bugs with this and the sound went a bit glitchy. On the next page, we can switch on or off the settings of the tempo sync. For example, if I play this track and I change the speed, it will be half speed or double speed. The mode will change the sound of it. If you put it to pitch, the faster it is, the higher the sound. And the sound will also change with the speed of the metronome. Now the bounce in. This is quite an important setting. If I turn it on, this track can now receive the bounce. Currently, every tracks are being bounced into this. So if I press this and this, I can just record them both together on this track. And finally, you can select which input will be recorded on this track. So for example, if I disable the mic one, when I will bounce the tracks into this one, my mic will not be recorded on it. So you can avoid sounds that you don't want to be in your loop. You can also use that if you just want to record your guitar on one specific track and not your voice. Step 3, the loop menu. So everything we're gonna do here is gonna be in this loop menu. So as I said earlier, this first setting is to select which track you want to edit. So let's go right now in rec. Here you can choose what's gonna happen after you've recorded a track. Either overdub or either just play it. Then we have quantize. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not exactly sure what it means. Then we have auto rec, which I explained in the previous video already. And then we have bounce switch. I'm gonna show you later how to have a shortcut for this, but if it's on, you can bounce things. If it's off, you cannot. Here on the bounce tracks, you can select which track will be bounced in the track that you want. If they are all selected, you will then also be able to bounce the track effects with it, but if at least one of them is not selected, then the track effects will not be recorded with it. Let's go into play now. Now the track change. By default it's on immediate. If you go on measure, then the tracks that are on single mode will only switch at the end of the measure, and on loop end, it will only switch once this specific track will stop. The current track is defined by the last track you've clicked on. The fade time is how long it will fade in or out. Then all start track and all stop track. You can choose what track will start or stop when you press this button. Loop length, once again I'm not sure what it does. Speed change is when you change the metronome, if it changes as you tweak the tempo or just at the end of the loop. Sync adjust, I'm not sure what it does either. Now let's go back to loop and go on the second page. Quickly, we have name here, just to rename your track. Rhythm, which you can quickly access by pressing this button. You can choose the genre, pattern, variation, the kit. You can choose many options to have a good drum kit. And you can even add an intro, an ending, and some fills. Now here we have the effects, input and track. They both do exactly the same thing, but for both input and track effects. So let's go in input. We can here turn on and off the effects just by doing that. Or you can click on them and switch the effect here. If we go on the second page, you can also switch the bank. You can switch if the effects are gonna do anything or not. You can switch between multi or single effects if you want only one effect at a time, and you can switch the effects target, which you can also do by just holding edit and the effect. Step 4, the menu. Let's press menu, and here let's go in input. We have dynamics to have some compression or threshold. You have the EQ where you can put an EQ on each one of your inputs. Now you can switch them on and off, and you can also change the low gain, high gain, low mid, high mid, level, low cut, high cut, and that's pretty much it. And now let's go in the setup, where you can switch on the phantom power or some more gain in your instruments. You can also activate the stereo link if you're using stereo or mono cables. For example, for my mic I use XLR, so it's mono, and for the instruments you usually use 2 jacks to have the stereo. Alright, let's go back in the menu, and now output. Let's start from the right again. Master effects, you can have some compression, some reverb, and the insert, which will choose on which output these settings will be. Now let's go back. We have again an EQ for each one of your outputs, main, sub 1, sub 2. If we go back, we have the routing. We can route the tracks, main, sub 1 and sub 2. If you disable any of those outputs, then the track effects will not go on this output anymore either. So I would recommend keeping them on if you use track effects. If we go back, you can have the input and rhythm routing, where you can switch off things from the output, but they will still go in your loop. For example, if I turn off the mic here, you can still record things on your loop, so it's basically a silent recording. And you have one page for each of the outputs, and here you can have the phone's rhythm to hear the rhythm on your headphones even if they're off on the main output, and the rhythm out if you want to have the rhythm going into your loop and not in your headphones. So you can record the drums into a track. And finally, here we have the phones out, which will tell you what output will come out from your headphones. I'm not too sure what individual does either, but I would recommend keeping it on main. So if we go back, we now have the setup. You can select what the output knob will do, which is right here. I like it to be used only on the phones and not on all, because I personally don't need to change the master during my tracks, so I can just change the phones if I don't hear myself enough on stage. Here we have the output stereo links, which I would recommend keeping on unless you have only one jack cable. And on the next page we have the preferences of main, sub 1, sub 2, phones, rhythm and master effects. I prefer keeping it on system, but if you want different settings for each of your tracks, you may want to change it to memory. Alright, let's go back in the menu, and now on the second page. I will not talk about the MIDI because I haven't used it yet,
but I know that Inky will make tutorials about it and he will release them around mid-January. So if you're interested in buying his tutorials, there will be a link in the description. So let's go and select USB.
You can turn on the storage mode if you want to connect your loop station to your PC and see the files that are inside, such as the audio files recorded on your loop or even more. Then we have the audio mode. I have vendor, as it will allow you to have multiple outputs on USB, so your PC will be able to record all of them. Then we have the routing. You can have line out, submix and loop in. Submix and loop in allow you to hear your PC into your loop and being able to record them into your tracks. The input level is pretty much just what you will hear from your PC, and the output level is what you will give to your PC. Now let's go back and open the assigns. Here you have 16 different assigns and you can switch them on. Here you have the source, so if you click on rec dub on the track 1, it will do something that you can then choose. You can choose between moment or toggle. Toggle is basically a switch like 0, 100, where moment you can have different values between those. The source action low is the minimum value of your source. This is the source action high,
which is the highest value of your source. And then you have the target, which is basically the consequence of your source.
For example, some of the targets have more effects here, so you can switch the target minimum and target max. For example, here the track 2 level will go to 0 or to 200, and you can easily switch that. Okay, let's go back into the control function. Let's start with the preference, the mode play and the mode undo. I prefer to keep them on memory, as you might need different ones for each track. The quick clear and all clear, I explained it in the previous video. And then you have all the controls, which I don't use because I don't have any control or expression pedal here. So you can choose if their settings will apply on the whole system of your loop or just one track if you select memory. Now let's go back. Here you have the control and expression pedals. You can say what they do. I've never used it because I don't have one. So let's go back. And here you have the panel. There are two different modes for the panel, the play and the undo. Play is basically you loop by default, and undo is basically when you click undo here. So to demonstrate this, I'm gonna go in the play panel. Here you have all 5 tracks button as well as the effects button. It's those two. So if I select track 1 here, I can choose what my track button from the first track will do. For now, I like to keep it on track edit, but there are a lot of options that you can just scroll through and find what you prefer. Okay, let's go back in the menu, but let's go on the third page now. We have the factory reset. Obviously it resets your loop, and here's the setup. You can choose the contrast that you want. You can also change the display mode. I like to have loop level. It's basically this thing. When a track is playing, you will see its level like this, but you can also switch this mode by just pressing the arrows here. Then we have the indicator, which controls the light around the tracks. Then you have the effects knob mode. I like it on immediate, but if you want to use it on hook, what it does is very simple. I'm going to show you how it works. If you have a track with one note, and here on track effects, I'm going to use a transpose. So I will play the track now with the effects on. It went on +12. If now I select, for example, the effect B, I put my knob back down here, and I select the effect A, which is transpose again. If I want to change the value of the transpose, I will then have to come up here and hook the transpose to be able to change it. Very easy, isn't it? I will keep it on immediate. On the next page we have the auto off, which apparently switches off your loop after some time. It never turned it off for me. And then we have the memory X, min and max. I don't know what they do, to be honest. On the next page you have the knob function. You can switch what every single of your knobs here will do. The first one by default is on memory. Then I use bounce for the last one, so I can easily turn on and off the bounce. And I have the rhythm level in case I don't hear the metronome loud enough. For the second one I haven't really found a use yet. Step 5, the undo redo. On this loop station, the undo redo function has been improved. Let's start by recording a track. Now let's overdub this. And one more time. Now let's press the undo button. I can just press the track to undo to the last step that I overdubbed. While I'm on the undo function, I can now press the square to go back to the first overdub. And go back to the last one I did. But there's a new feature on the undo redo which allows you to set a marker. Now I'm gonna set a marker by pressing undo and track. So now whatever I do on top of this, I can go back to this point of the recording. And for that, I just need to press undo and the square. Easy, isn't it? And on that note, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching again. Please feel free to share if you think someone could need this. Leave a like if you liked it. Tell me if there's something you didn't understand. And also tell me things that I didn't understand myself, so that I can put it in the comments and everyone else can see it. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Jimmy. Goodbye.